Hello, this is Gunjan and I will explain to you the unique differences between self-harm and suicide behavior and what is our research talking about, the root causes, and finally how do we address individuals who have a history of self-harm or suicide behavior. Recently, we went to Vadodara to present a paper on self-harm and suicide behavior, how to differentiate and the root causes. In that paper, we did some work before we presented on differentiating the two, identifying some unique aspects of contributors, and finally how to address that. So self-harm is a non-suicidal self-injury where the intention is not to take the life. In suicide behavior, which includes three components: history of suicidal thoughts, plans, or suicide behavior. When you talk of self-harm, again repeating that it is not connected to taking any life or intentions, whereas in suicide it's clear. Self-harm is an attempt to relieve or take the attention away from the extreme pain or stress that the individual is going through. That could be because of extreme anger, helplessness, frustrations, or whatever may be the cause. The injury is not aimed at taking life. For anybody who is a parent or therapist, please understand that those two are different things. At the same time, it's also important to realize that individuals who have history of suicide behavior, most of them have a history of self-harm, more than 80% of them from our records, and that's more or less consistent with the data in the globe. So therefore, if you can identify the risk or a history of self-harm and address it, you're preventing any future degeneration of behavioral issues or mental health. Now I'll take you through some data on what are the risk factors for both self-harm and suicide behavior. We'll connect them together because they are in a way interconnected. First, as you will see in the visual, when an individual, adult, who has gone through a series of childhood trauma components, as the trauma components increase, the risk for self-harm and suicide behavior increases. The visual shows you that the percentage of both scenarios in the highest trauma group on the right is much higher compared to the one on the left. This is one important factor, that stronger the childhood trauma experience, the higher the risk of self-harm and suicide behavior. Second, interpersonal trauma components, which includes physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, and emotional neglect, and we have extended that to include the presence or experience of domestic violence in the home that the child was growing up and fights between the parents. Out of the six, when three of those six components or more are present, the risk of self-harm increases 3 times compared to those who have not experienced those. So this is one important component. Third, individuals who have a history of being violent, both verbally and physically, are at a higher risk, 3 times higher risk of self-harm compared to those who don't have such behavioral issues. So these 3 are important components for parents or therapists to recognize. And now that you've seen the visuals, let me talk about what do we do to understand and address the issues. First, we go through the granular assessments of childhood trauma components. 16 components, their frequencies, specifically interpersonal trauma components frequencies. When we get that, we are able to prioritize using the Pareto or 80-20 rule or index trauma, which of the components are likely to contribute to self-harm. And therefore, we address the emotional pain, emotional negativity associated with those memories which are part of the individuals. We do that by releasing and reframing. We call it release reframe toolkit. So we release from the body and reframe in the mind. There are 2 fundamental components of the techniques that we use for interventions. First, reconsolidation of traumatic memories. It's a very powerful tool for post-traumatic stress disorders. Second, we use inner child integration or healing the child within methodology. Both of these involve not just release from the body, but reframing from the mind, and includes future pacing, which is very common in this form of psychotherapy. To summarize, the findings provide very clear guidelines for therapists as well as psychologists or parents that there are risk factors for self-harm that you can prevent. If you're not being able to prevent, or for whatever reason self-harm is happening, understand the root causes and address the pain. Second, self-harm increases the risk for suicide behavior, and therefore it's better to address that and not allow things to continue. And self-harm has clear drivers, as I explained: interpersonal trauma components or the amount of exposure to childhood trauma overall. And the two methods we use, inner child integration methodology and reconsolidation of traumatic memory, includes both release and reframe components of the release reframe toolkit. I hope this provides you a clear idea, and the intention here is to provide action based possibilities and not just the facts which may not be actionable.